All right, Larry Krueger here from the Pig and a Pickle Krug Show with a little San Francisco Giant video. The Giants add a reliever, or do they? We'll hit that next. And of course, we're brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out in Emeryville and Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 10 p. or till 8 p.m. Or until they run out. Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. They are fantastic. Check them out and go get the brisket chili, and tell them that Larry Krueger sent you. And of course, this video is also brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. I'm loving Underdog Fantasy. Check the link in the description. Use the promo code Krug, and they'll match you up to your first $100. This week in Underdog, I'm going Jaden Reed, higher than 48.5 receiving yards. Kareem Hunt, higher than 24.5 rushing yards. Amon-Ra St. Brown, higher than 7.5 receptions. Josh Allen, higher than 220.5 passing yards. And Isaiah Pacheco, higher than 64.5 rushing yards. Well, the Giants made some news today, signing Jordan Hicks, and they're going to use him as a starting pitcher. Now, this is interesting. Jeff Passan from ESPN reporting it's a 4-year deal for $44 million for Hicks, who's 27. He has spent the majority of his career in the pen. He's got 8 major league starts and 212 appearances over 5 seasons. This was one of the most sought-after relief pitchers at the trade deadline a year ago, and the Cardinals dealt him to Toronto for a couple prospects. 81 strikeouts in 65 2/3 innings between the two teams last year. He allowed just 4 home runs, saving 12 games. After the trade, he had a 2.63 ERA and 25 appearances for Toronto, all of them out of the bullpen. So we're talking about one of the hardest throwers in the game. This guy throws 100 miles an hour. His 4-seam fastball was second to Joan Duren's 101.8. He averaged 100.3 miles per hour. He also throws 101.1 mile an hour average on his sinker, which is second in the big leagues, only to the power lefty himself, Aroldis Chapman. Now, Hicks did have Tommy John surgery in June of 2019 after he saved 14 games and 15 tries for the Cardinals. And he opted out of the COVID-shortened 2020 season, and he was diagnosed he had health concerns during the COVID season. He was diagnosed in high school with type 1 diabetes, but he returned in 2021 only to experience another setback with right elbow discomfort, went on the injured list in early May, and did not pitch again that season. But we're talking about one of the preeminent power arms in the game. Now, whether the Giants use him in the rotation like they're planning on it, or if he's a guy that pitches out of the pen, he's a really, really talented right-handed pitcher who's overpowering. And if you looked at his numbers last year, 3-9 with 12 saves in 15 save opportunities. He pitched in 65 total games, 65 2/3. He gave up 57 hits, and he struck out 81. The league only hit 231 against him. So he's a power arm. I mean, whether they use him in front of, their closer or, as a setup guy, I think Camilo Doval is obviously a power arm. I'd love to see Hicks setting up Doval, but if they want to use Hicks as a rotation guy and he can pitch the innings, you're talking about an overwhelming right-handed pitcher. It's a little bit of a projection because he hasn't done it before, but an exciting player, really an exciting player. Came up in 2018 with the Cardinals, pitching 73 games in 2018, 29 games in 2019, didn't pitch in 2020, as I said, came back in 2021, 10 games, 35 games in 2022, 40 last year with St. Louis, and then 25 with Toronto. So I like this pickup quite a bit. This is a great power arm. Maybe he can be a starter. And, I got to think that if he's a starter, he's more of a kind of a 5-inning starter. He's probably not a guy who's going to pitch deep into games, but that's kind of not the way around in the big leagues anyway. It's like be dominant for 4 or 5 innings and then come out of the game. So, what's his best role? I think his best role is an 8th inning setup man in front of Camilo Doval. But maybe the Giants are thinking, hey, you know what? We'll take a shot on Hicks as a starter. And then you never know. And this gives them versatility. If they get to spring training and Harrison looks great and Wisenhunt looks great and some of their younger arms are starting to really blossom, this helps them. The other thing you got to remember is the Giants have set themselves up this year for what could be kind of like two different type halves, right? So in the first half of the year, I think Jordan Hicks is probably going to be in the rotation. But then in the middle of the year, they're going to get Robbie Ray coming back and they're going to get Alex Cobb coming back. And once those guys come back, then maybe Jordan Hicks at that point jumps to the bullpen. So that's something to watch for as well. I mean, right now you would say Logan Webb, Jordan Hicks, Ross Stripling, Kyle Harrison. Maybe they'll add one more starting pitcher. That's probably your rotation. You also have some younger guys as well. You still got Keaton Wynn, and Keaton Wynn could be a starter. Sean Jelly could be a starter. Tristan Beck could be a starter. Kai Tang could be a starting pitcher for them. So they have some guys, but it's funny when I like this move for on a lot of fronts. One, because Hicks is probably a reliever. But if they want to start him in the first half of the year, and then when Robbie Ray and Alex Cobb are ready to jump into the rotation, you kick Hicks into the eighth inning setup role, and it makes a lot of sense. There's they don't know exactly who's going to be in the rotation on the back end. Is Keaton Wynn ready for a regular turn in the rotation? Is Ryan Walker, who was used as an opener last year? How many games does Ryan Walker start? And then some of these younger guys like Kai Tang, they've got some guys like that, Wisenhunt, Mason Black, Tristan Beck, maybe a couple of these guys come of age. What it really gives them, though, is another talented power arm. And if some of the young arms that they have in their farm system blossom and come of age, then you kick Hicks into a relief role. And suddenly you've got Hicks setting up Doval at the end of games, and you might be able to be super, super powerful in that regard. So I like it. I like the addition. I absolutely be the guy who can step in and be a reliever and be a starter and kind of be both for them. I mean, it gives them an opportunity to really, to really have a guy who could man multiple roles. And it kind of gives them an opportunity where if all of a sudden Hicks looks great as a starter, they can keep him in the rotation. And if their young pitchers don't come of age, then they can keep him in the rotation. And if he does come of age, and then all of a sudden you've got a big time starting pitcher, that works out. And if Robbie Ray and Alex Cobb, come back into the fray, and suddenly those guys are really ready to roll, then you can make this guy a reliever. So I like it. I really like the addition for the Giants. The money that's being thrown around for starting pitching is absolutely astronomical. I think the Giants had some interest in Marcus Stroman, but he went to the Yankees. I think they had some interest, obviously, in Imanaga, but they lost out on Imanaga to the Cubs. So, to me, this makes a lot of sense. Hicks can also earn an additional $2 million in incentives based on innings pitched, according to Susan Slusser. And those incentives begin kicking in at the 100-inning mark. So odds are he's gonna get those innings in the first half of the year. And it's interesting. He's a 27-year-old flamethrower who worked as a starting pitcher in the minor leagues before debuting in the Cardinals bullpen in 2018. So it's not like he's never started. He has started before. St. Louis briefly experimented with a move back to the rotation early in the 2022 campaign. It didn't necessarily pan out. He yielded 16 runs in 24 and 2/3 innings and then moved back to the bullpen. But the Giants are going to try to maximize him. The Giants have shown a knack of helping guys with power arms kind of break out. Kevin Gausman comes to mind. I mean, when you think of the kind of raw stuff that Jordan Hicks has, it's as good a raw stuff as there is. I mean, there's very few pitchers in the game that can rival this guy's velocity. I mean, he's a former third round pick. He's got, unbelievable velocity. He's got a slider that he throws at 86. Um, he's thrown an occasional changeup in the past, never more than 4 or 5% of his pitches. That changeup is sitting there right around some of the, lesser arms average fastball. He throws his change at 91. So we're talking about a guy with a 91 mile an hour changeup. So unbelievable, velocity. We'll see about durability. He's never pitched more than 105 innings between the big leagues and the minors combined in any one season in his career. He did have Tommy John surgery already in 2019. He did have a 60-day injured list stint due to inflammation in the elbow in 2021. He missed more than a month of the 2022 season due to an elbow flexor strain. And then he came back that year in 2020. That was 2022. He returned from that injury in early July and was put back on the injured list in mid-September with arm fatigue. But when he's healthy, I mean, you're talking about one of the most overpowering pitchers in the game. This guy's got a 3.85 career ERA and, just a real power arm that, is not old. That's the one thing too. Some of the Giants, you look at some of these pitchers out there, the kind of years that they're getting. I mean, 10-year deals, 12-year deals. I mean, that's just way, way too long for some of these diminutive pitchers. I mean, the Dodgers gave Yamamoto a long-term deal, and to me, he reminds me an awful lot of Tim Lincecum. And I mean, come on, Tim Lincecum had 4 good years in the big leagues. So I like this move. We'll see what the Giant rotation looks like. We know it's Logan Webb. We know it'll be this guy. Alex Cobb at some point, Robbie Ray at some point. There's Ross Stripling. There's Kyle Harrison. There's Keaton Wynn. There's Tristan Beck. There's top prospect Carson Wisenhunt. They got a couple other young arms in their system that they'll take a look at, and they may not be done. So overall, great move by the Giants. Thanks to Pig and a Pickle for being the title sponsor of the Krug Show. Thanks to Underdog Fantasy for sponsoring this video. Thanks to all of you guys for supporting the Krug Show on YouTube.